Just wanted to do a quick update of the status of the tanks in my fish room. Nothing fancy. I hadn't really had the time to edit anything out, or not that anything I have is fancy as it is, but figured I'd just give a quick rundown of how some of the tanks are doing. Had some unfortunate things happen and some good things happen, so you all know how it is in the hobby. First off, one of my nano tanks. This one I just kind of been throwing trimmings and clippings into from this nano, my first planted nano over here on the right. But yeah, I just kind of threw any trimmings I had in here. This tank had been wiped out 3 times due to blue-green algae just completely overtaking the tank. Finally found a cheap, easy way of getting rid of that, which is those little fungus clear tabs. You get at Walmart, I think, what is it, the Jungle brand, this company, something like that. It's like $3-4 bucks. Anyway, the fungus tabs completely wipe it out. And it didn't hurt any of the plants or none of the inhabitants of the tank. So now, I did that 2-3 times as I just saw a little bit starting up, and it's gone. And for the most part, this tank, I've just left it alone, really. I'm not even trimming it, nothing like that. A little bit as, please excuse me, I forget the name of this plant right here. But I put some of these guys in here, and as they started to get kind of big and grown out, I just took those out to move into one of my other tanks, and I'll explain why in a minute. But for the most part, I'm just leaving it alone. As the grass grows in, I might pull some out and move over into my larger tank, and pretty much just using this as a grow tank. I've also moved some of my shrimp over into here. Most of them are pretty well hidden right now. Let's see, here's a few in the back. I'm going to try and get a second colony going, you know. Hopefully, eventually, I can get enough to start selling or trading them or something like that. Might not do either, but anyway. Here's, as I said earlier, my first nano. It's doing pretty good. I've noticed when I tend to just leave my tanks alone, they do good. I'm bad about over-tinkering or, just, trying to change. I'll have one little thing that's kind of bothering me, and in the pursuit of trying to correct it or change it, I end up throwing the whole balance of tank off and, causing a lot of problems. One thing that really sucked, and you can barely see it in the video, focusing on it, you might notice all these scratches. Yeah, you can see them. I've basically ruined this tank. It just drives me nuts, and what sucks is there's not much I can do about it, but I just put a bunch of really bad scratches through here. I use one of these, let me see down here. It's a quick tip on these. It's the floating magnetic scrubber. Well, there's how it comes. It's got these little bristles on it. If you have sand in your tank, do not use these. Awful. What it did is I got too close to the bottom, picked up a few grains of sand in it, and then they scratched the shit out of my glass. And now that's forever there to capture. Algae starts growing out of it, and it just looks terrible, and it makes it that much easier for algae to grow. But what I've learned now is by taking just this cheap scrubby pad from the dollar store. You get like 10 in a pack for $1. I cut it down to size, and I lay that over the top. That stays on. It prevents it, even if sand gets caught up in this, it doesn't scratch because the sand can kind of push back into it. And it also, because between this and then also I put just a baby sock over the outside piece, because it too also in the very fine felt that's on it. Here, let me pull this up. There's like a fine, very thin, get this out one-handed. There's a very thin layer of felt on here. And this too, sometimes I might have a grain of sand or something make it out of the tank. And especially on these, they have the glass top. The sand would get up here, and then I would run this over the sand, it would catch it, and it was scratching the outside. So between putting basically just a sock over it, and then the extra cushioning between the two, and then weakening of the force of the magnets pulling together, because they kind of act like a spacer or whatever. It's made it to where the sand is no longer scratching my glass. Sadly, I got kind of lazy one day the last time I did it and didn't have my little green pad on there, and of course that's when I get the worst scratching. But other than that, tank's doing pretty good, except for whatever reason my grass has kind of died off a little bit back here. I guess I had this moss kind of overhanging too much, wasn't getting enough light, so I'm going to go ahead and set some plugs back there and try and get it to fill back in the back. But other than that, been pretty happy with this tank. I got my 55 gallon oddball tank, as I called it. Right now it's still just nothing special. It's a little hazy. I just cleaned a lot of algae off the glass. But for the most part, this tank I'm really not doing anything with at the moment. I've really just been kind of just throwing, like, I had a bunch of these mollies bred, I threw them in there. These, what are they, Buenas something, God, I can't remember the name of half the stuff I got. Anyway, these guys I had in my 30-gallon planted tank, but they were eating up, they started eating up the plants and eating up some of the shrimp I was trying to start off in that tank, so I went ahead and just threw them in here. Pretty much anything that's not working out in the community tank, I throw in here. Okay, so not much going on there. Now the 30-gallon. Again, like I was talking about earlier, well, some of the changes, first off, I got some suggestions off of Planet Tank Forum on adding some more hardscape. So I went out in my backyard, found me a nice piece of dried out oak, cleaned it off, sprayed it off with some vinegar and peroxide, cleaned it up, and now it's made a nice centerpiece for the tank. Went ahead and added in a bit more of a few more white clouds, a few more neon blues, and yeah, I got my numbers just about right. Part of what I was talking about where I over tinker with, though, this tank I bought used off Craigslist, and it was a saltwater tank, and this dude had this thing just slam packed full of coral and everything, and he didn't really know what he was doing. He told me he bought the whole setup of the coral and everything from a friend of his, and he killed off all the coral, and then he let all that salt water and stuff just kind of evaporate out of the tank. He just left it sitting, and so there's a crap load of scratches. He did kind of the same thing I did with the scrubby pad and the sand, except he just didn't care. So, like, the glass is just completely full of scratches, which for the deal I got on it, I could handle with this. It didn't bother me. But what did bother me is there's a lot of, the glass has got hard water stains on it, and again, I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but there's just a ton of hard water stains and really thick, so you can actually kind of see the haziness in the glass. Well, my genius self decided that I would go ahead and drain out all the water, drained all the water all the way down, pull all the fish out. I pulled most of the plants out, but stuff like this dwarf baby tears, which these are some new plugs I just planted out of that nano grow tank I was showing you. So these ones back here that are grown in, they've that's what survived, but all this was full of these, and the cleaner I used some CLR and tried to keep as much from getting down in the tank as I could. I just kind of sprayed it on some paper towels and then stuck those to the glass. Really didn't make much of a difference. I mean, it pulled some of the hard water stains off a little bit, but for the most part, it basically didn't make a difference. And what ended up happening is I ended up killing all this here. I ended up killing all my grass that I had started. So these are some new plugs I got in here. And then this taller grass, again, sorry guys, I'm blanking on all the names right now. A lot of it, even though I pulled it out of the sand, for whatever reason, pulling it out and replanting it caused a lot of it to die off. Luckily, some of it you can see the new growth has come back on it, but a majority of it died just, I guess, from the trauma of pulling it out and putting it back in. Maybe there might have been a little bit of trace amounts of the CLR still in there. Hasn't seemed to hurt the fish any, but the plants definitely suffered because of it. So basically, I set the tank back as far as growth-wise. All the gains I had over the last 2-3 months basically completely wiped them out. And, you know, had the glass cleaned up how I was hoping, totally would have been worth it. You know, would have been worth it, but sadly, there's no difference in the glass, and, you know, basically I lost a lot of grow time. But now I'm taking more of the approach, like I've kind of taken with some of my other tanks, of just leaving it the F alone. Not doing anything at all, just, you know, other than every Monday I clean off all the algae off the glass. I'll do a 10% water change, and that's it. You know, I'm not really trimming anything. Unless something majorly goes wrong, I'm leaving it be. So hopefully this will all grow in and fill in more. But like I said, again, this whole tank, just by leaving it alone, this thing was completely barren, and it's actually starting to shape up to be pretty nice. Even this like Java fern back here, that's all new growth off a clump that was completely dead from when I nuked the tank with bleach and peroxide. I just completely nuked the tank trying to get rid of that blue-green algae. But anyway, all this is just throwing trimmings in, leaving it alone. It's looking good. This tank finally started leaving it alone, looking good. So now, hopefully over here, I'll leave it alone and it'll start looking good. So that's just a quick update. Let y'all know what's up. Any questions, just shoot them to me and I'll answer to the best of my knowledge. Again, I'm not some super pro at this, but I'd say for the most part, tanks are looking pretty good. I'm happy with them.